there's an expression in Spanish. You refer to a soccer player as a futbolista. And a futbolista is not just like a soccer player. It's who you are. It's your persona. First of all, at 13, 14, they know everything. Just in case you weren't sure, you know nothing. They know all because they've had all those worldly experiences in life. Open dialogue, but respecting boundaries. If they don't want to talk, you can't force them to talk about things. It's just their makeup. And look, as adults, we get it. But he went from that to I'm going to Europe, and he was not even turned 16 yet when he left.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Inside Scoop. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm your host and also the founder of Anytime Soccer Training. I am sitting down with a wonderful guest by the name of Gloria Stitt. Gloria, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
Gloria is the co-founder of a new website called ussoccerparent.com. Gloria, I love the name.
Thank you.
It is going to be a resource to help parents understand and navigate this complex world of youth soccer as they support their child. It's going to be a hub that brings in leading contributors and influencers, and then you're sharing your own learned and lived experiences to be a resource again to help parents help their child reach their full potential in soccer. Gloria, you're going to tell us a little bit about the website, and then this interview is going to be just your personal story as a soccer mom and what tips, tricks, and reflections you can give with other parents who are starting this journey in youth soccer. Welcome to the show. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. So my name's Gloria Stitt. I am the mother of two, but one is a soccer athlete or football athlete, I should say. He's currently 19 and living actually his best life in Madrid, playing in Madrid. And it's been a journey getting him there. So we can talk about that after.
Yeah. So we're going to do another short interview about your impressions of U.S. soccer here and then your son playing in Madrid, which is actually really, really cool. And what did he think, to the best you can articulate? You know how our teenagers, young adults are. What did he think? And then what did you guys observe as a family? So I like to start these off with an oral history. So Let's go down memory lane. First of all, did you grow up playing soccer? Where are you from? How did that work? And then if you didn't or did or whatever, when were you first introduced to the sport? And then talk about your son's first involvement in the sport.
Sure. So I'm actually born and raised in New York City, but I come from a family of Hispanic background. So my grandmother and my mother's family is all from Spain. That's our origin. My mother was actually born in Cuba, and my brother and I are first generation American born in New York. So soccer is kind of culturally very much woven into the zeitgeist of being Hispanic or Latin American, if you will. It is not just a sport, it is the sport in the culture. So I've always been exposed to it. And growing up in the summer, visiting my family in Spain and subsequently my children, always exposed to soccer. So I've always had a knowledge base for it. Of course, I became more passionate as my son started to play because you just have a whole different level of love for the sport. If they love it, you love it. But he started in a small little indoor futsal group in New York City. I mean, when I say New York City, I mean Manhattan. So it's not like there's fields everywhere. So he went from indoor play to quickly finding a group that did outdoor play. And to be honest, it was all happenstance. It was through another friend in school who had just done it. And they said, oh, let's do it together. didn't really take it seriously. I figured, maybe this is just a whim, but better than hockey because hockey equipment was super expensive. Um, so anyway, long story short, he started playing about 10 years ago now. No, yeah, about 10 years ago. And he just kept moving. He just kept doing well. And we kept getting, feedback from the coaches like, oh, you should maybe try this group. I think he's advanced enough for this. So he always was on the younger side, but playing at the higher level. And then we one day kind of looked at each other and we were like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe he's like actually pretty good at this. We should probably take this a little bit more seriously. So we started with the mentality of recreational soccer, and then it turned into travel soccer, and then it turned into serious business. And started playing in tournaments, and all of a sudden trying out for an MLS next team, and the rest just it just started to snowball, mainly because of his passion, his talent, his discipline. But I would say discipline, passion, talent, or just there's no particular order. They were just kind of all molding into this athlete, and we realized quickly that we needed to support that. How we were going to do it, we weren't sure. But
So, all right. So when you started indoor, how often was he going to the indoor programming?
It started as literally like a weekend thing. It was like every Saturday morning. And then we quickly moved from that to a regular team that was now, it was an indoor facility, but with artificial turf. So he quickly moved to that like twice a week. And then all of a sudden, as he kept progressing, I would say within a year, it was like 3 to 4 days a week of training plus games on the weekends.
So as you reflect back as a parent, how, and I'm gonna use my air quotes, how intentional were you guys in terms of getting him into a more competitive environment? And how much of that did you even understand at the time?
So let me start with we understood nothing about it at the time, zero, which is part of the impetus of creating this website, to be honest. We knew nothing. And right around the time of COVID, we realized, we were upset, obviously, like everyone was, because he couldn't, play the same way and train the same way. Everybody had to take a break. But that was around the time that we were literally at a cocktail, and I started talking. Somebody asked me about my kids, and all of a sudden they were like, oh yeah, my son plays. He plays for this team. It's an MLS next team. And I'm sitting there going, uh-huh. And I'm going, what is MLS next? Like, it wasn't even clear in my mind, everything. And they said, oh, you should contact this coach and talk to them. And if it hadn't been for just a simple conversation, we would never have figured this out as quickly as we did. And, we immediately contacted the coach because we knew that he was serious. Whether he was going to take the college pro path or not, we weren't sure yet. We had already signed him up for some college IDs. He was 16 playing with 19-year-olds, and he was more than stepping up and keeping up. So we knew that there was something here that we had to help him explore further. So we contacted this coach. He went to his first tryout, if you will, with the team, immediately got a call back, said, can you come again? And he did this for 2 weeks, and then he got a spot on the team. And he ended up being a starter rather quickly. He was with Med Oval, which is an MLS next team out of New York. Wonderful, wonderful team, great coaching staff, super educated coaching staff, which is really important. But the whole staff was very educated, if you will. They had their own facilities, beautiful facility. So this was the real deal. And we realized that we were starting to approach a whole new level.
But before he joined the MLS Next, what was he doing before that, though? In between
Yeah.
borderline recreational. What clubs was he doing before that, though?
He was with a group called Soccer Stars United, which was also in New York, and they had several teams, and he was competing at EDP tournaments, working his way up to the different levels of teams. And he was very intense. I mean, we were traveling on the weekends to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, I've stayed in more motels I care to ever share. Um, but and before MLS Next, we were actually even considering moving to like North Carolina, where there's such a vibrant soccer community and world and choices. Um, so we said there's got to be more than what we're doing. So it was that need of want and desperation to help him that made us start to just ask people like what would you do? What's the next step? How do we figure this out? Like help me. Please.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I have my younger son. I have a friend. His son is on my youngest son's team, and he came from New York, Manhattan as well.
Mm-hmm.
Works in finance, and he said that was one of his considerations when they were relocating, because there are just a variety and options that you have in the Southeast because of the space.
Of
And he said
course.
that was a big challenge. So I want to talk a couple of things. I actually lived in Brooklyn a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Describe the soccer culture in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
because New York has its own unique culture within America in general, right?
Right.
And I know this is a huge generalization, but New York is just so multinational, so
Right.
international. It's New York City, right? So
Sure.
what is the soccer culture like? And then
Mhm.
how do people cope with the field space? And how easy is it to practice like 3 or 4 days a week like they do in North Carolina outdoors in New York
Sure.
City? So what's that like?
So, yeah, no, it's a great question. So, it, in Manhattan, there's a small island called Randall's Island, and that is filled with fields for all kinds of sports. Soccer's one of them, and they're big, big fields. Now, you have to travel to get there. So we either would drive there or take public transport. So it wasn't like it was next door. You have to cross the river and you had to go to this island and then you had to travel within the island to get to your fields. So Soccer Stars United, for example, they always had fields. They had fields that we always used, etc. So two or three nights a week, he would, after school, come home, get some work done, quickly change, and off to the races to get to Randall's Island.
And
Um,
how long are we talking from a commute perspective from center Manhattan?
so we lived in Midtown. It could, depending on traffic, if we were driving, it could be anywhere from 10 minutes to 45. It just depends. And with public transport, can take a little bit because sometimes you had to go to a different station and you had to change or whatever. Um, he got super smart and savvy. And when the weather was good, he would use like a city bike and he would bike to the island.
Oh, okay.
That wouldn't take him much long. And that was almost his warm up to get there. So that was good. He was pretty savvy about that. So it depended on the time of day, and the season. And they played outdoors, I mean, in some pretty intensely cold weather.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and I was like the typical mom, wear gloves, wear a hat. He's like, Mom, I'm sweating on the field. I'm like, dude, it's 20 degrees outside. He's like, I'm fine. So it could be a little challenging with the weather, but they practice and he never missed it. He would wait to the last minute to make sure something wasn't canceled. And most of the time it wasn't canceled. They plowed through, which was good because it really gave them some grit, if you will.
So, all right. So we have that. What about small clubs that just couldn't afford or logistically couldn't make it work? What access do they have to fields if they're in Manhattan?
You can still use and these fields are open, so you can rent them, you can, reserve them. So a lot of smaller clubs do is they actually share the fields, right, for practices. So you might have two or three clubs training at the same time on one field, and everybody takes a section, and it kind of works out. Um, and so there is availability. There are other fields. I'm just talking about Randall's Island because it was like a main field. A lot of the high schools in Manhattan used it for big recreational events, et cetera, because they have all kinds of fields. But um, that's what a lot of clubs do. They share it.
So in terms of the soccer culture, and when I say that, I'm talking also around along the lines of parents. So because New York is New York, people now I lived in New York. So and I said this, I actually used the analogy of the oh God, what that Easter egg, that egg that has the soft interior but the hard shell. What was that egg? You know,
Oh,
that candy that has the
a
hard,
Cadbury.
the Cadbury. So I use that analogy to describe New Yorkers. You have to have, you gotta have, if you don't have a hard shell, you can't make it to work, right? Like you can't function. But on the inside, you guys are lovely,
Thank
right?
you.
It's like you're like down south on the inside, but you have to break through that shell because you're just around so many people all the time. And, it's New York City.
Sure.
So I asked that to say, how does that influence the soccer culture? Is it like ultra competitive or not, or elitist or not? Like, what is it?
I mean, it's definitely, I think as your athlete or as our son kept progressing, it was definitely competitive, but it was still like good natured, right? You still functioned as a team, and the parents acted like a team and were very supportive. Um, what I do find was so amazing was because we lived in Manhattan and it is a melting pot, just culturally speaking, you had such diverse backgrounds on the team. And some of them were Europeans, so they grew up, with European parents who either played it recreationally or who really understand the game. Then you had people who kind of got into it because of their kids. And then you had, like I said, a diversity of cultures that all brought a different level of flavor and intensity to the games, which I think just added to the experience.
Now, how expensive was, and expensive kind of depends on your perspective, but in general, how expensive is youth soccer in New York, especially when you think about other areas of the country? So, like Manhattan just being an expensive place to live. And
Right.
I'm thinking the field space might have been relatively expensive. So, like, how expensive is youth soccer in New York to play at those competitive levels?
I think it I think it actually depends on the club or the association or federation that it falls under, because some things do get covered, if you will. I mean, no matter where you play, you have to buy your uniforms and you have to pay a fee and, those things. And I'm sure that, the fees are all inclusive. I always joke that the most expensive thing with my son are constantly buying new cleats, new boots, right? Those are expensive, but that is his work engine, right? So they have to be good. But as far as expense, I'm sure it was just more expensive than the average. But it's like all the fees are like kind of all inclusive. I think where it gets expensive, honestly, was when you had to start traveling to the tournaments, because then you had tournament fees you have to pay for. You have to pay for your hotels, your travel expenses. Like none of that is covered. So living in the city, the big tournaments are pretty far out. So the travel is more intense. And I think that that's where it starts to get expensive versus I find a lot of the in other states, because you have the space, you're not traveling those big distances this in the same level of frequency.
Yeah, so now we're gonna be wrapping this up soon. Now, did your son or did you guys pay for any quote unquote private training as he progressed?
We didn't until he went to Europe.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
And then what motivated that?
Um, More about helping him with his athleticism, to help him with the level of play he's trying to get to. And just out of, again, necessity, with us being here and him living there, having a group that is it's not just about the game, it's about the total athlete, the mental preparation, the physical aspects, the all of those things, the training, proper training, which is so critical. When you're playing at a certain level, you have to watch for load, you have to watch for injury prevention, your nutrition. And I just love the fact that, he has all of those things because they all work together. So it wasn't just, there's an expression in Spanish, you refer to a soccer player as a futbolista. And a futbolista is not just like a soccer player. It's who you are. It's your persona. So it's like all the aspects of your life are kind of built around that. So we didn't do that until he was there, and we saw that necessity.
Oh, that's interesting. So, um,
By
going,
the way, we didn't know about options here. Hence, again, having that information and having the resources is so important.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things with me. I fumbled around helping my sons, and I learned a lot along the way. So, going back to futbolista, I hope I said that right.
You'd say,
I got a C minus in Spanish.
I won't tell.
Hey, you listen, you don't have to. You don't have to. Anybody listen to me knows I can barely speak English, let alone Spanish. So on through the futbolista
Mhm.
and using that concept for your whole family. How would you describe your husband's engagement in all of this?
Mhm.
And then you said you have another child. To the extent you want to share, how did that whole family dynamic work? And I'm saying that because I'm a parent. Both of my sons happen to be into soccer, but even if they both are, it's just it's like a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. It
And
is.
so I'm gonna leave it there. It's like having another, it's like, no. It's like having a full-time job that you don't get paid for.
Kind of like being a parent.
Yeah, and you have to pay for it yourself. So it's like,
Right.
so you're trying to balance all those priorities.
Sure.
So describe your family dynamic. Describe how much your husband was into it, your other child to the extent you want to, and how did that all come
Yeah.
together?
I mean, honestly, Ron, my husband, is my partner in all of this, and he's as intense or more intense than even I am. But we're not. When I say that, I just want to clarify, we're not. We don't consider ourselves like helicopter in that aspect. Like go, go, go. Like we like to consider ourselves intense in the fact that we're very supportive, and helping him with his journey. His sister is an older sibling. When he was really all in on this, she was leaving for college. She's always been very supportive of his goals and his dreams. And whenever possible, she would also come to his games and cheer him on. But, there's a 4-year age gap between them, and boy girl is a little bit different on the dynamics. But, she boasts about him. She's very proud of him, especially now that he's so far away. But the family dynamic is just in general, we're a very supportive team, the Stitt team. We know we all support each other's endeavors, etc., whether it's professional or, something like soccer, which started as, recreation and has turned into his job, basically. So I think because it's also fun and we enjoy it, it just kind of makes it easier to be all in.
So you have a unique last name, at least from the Southeast, I can see a lot of branding opportunities. I'm thinking we stick together. I'm also thinking you might, before you laugh, oh, Stitt, we're a soccer family. I can see a lot there. You know what I mean? So we're gonna
I
talk about
like
some
it.
brand. We're gonna talk about some brand deals because I think
There you go.
I can see some fun stuff there. All right. So I happen to have a 14-year-old,
Mhm.
and no matter what you think you are doing as a parent, once they go, I don't know if it's always 13 to 14, but it's got something to do with going into high school. Their personalities change. Describe that period for your son, and how would you characterize his personality change going into as he hit puberty and all that kind of stuff?
Um, it's interesting. I think, first of all, at 13, 14, they know everything. Just in case you weren't sure, you know nothing. They know all because they've had all those worldly experiences in life. Um, but what I found the most amusing and yet frustrating was, you know, trying to have that dialogue about the game or practice or whatever. Mom, I know. Mom, I know. Or mom, you just don't know. That was my favorite. You don't know. So I think it was more about understanding, you know, that you're dealing with someone who has probably a certain maturity level for something. So, you know, he was always very mature in his approach to the game and to practice. And that's where that discipline comes from. But then he was like the typical 14-year-old for everything else. So that dichotomy of trying to balance those two sides of his maturing personality was definitely challenging. I would say, you know, trying to stay the course, to be, you know, a guide, to be a parent, to still apply those things, you know, you're going to have to balance the mental IQ development of the person plus the athletic mental acumen. You know, they are sometimes they don't see eye to eye. And for a parent, it can be really tough to navigate. But you know your child best. So one solution does not fit all. So it's really learning and continuously having, you know, open dialogue, but respecting boundaries. If they don't want to talk, you can't force them to talk about things. You know, it's just their makeup. And look, as adults, we get it. We all need our quiet time, our me time, our introspection and our own personal moments and a safe space. And for most teenagers, that is being in their room with the door closed, coming out to be fed and to be watered every couple of hours. But for us, it was a lot of fun, though, to see him blossom into this person. Like when we would always joke, like he's this whole other persona when he would hit the pitch, no matter what he was going through. So it's just a matter of, you know, balancing the two sides of that coin during those rough and formative years.
Okay. Now, a couple more questions and we're going to wrap this up. Did you guys actually go to MLS Next Fest?
No.
Did he go?
No.
How
Again,
does that work? Oh, is that something that you have to win a certain amount and then make it?
something. Yeah. So he was only there for a couple of months before COVID and he left for Europe. So his path went from 0 to 100 very quickly and took some diversions because of COVID, but he went from that to I'm going to Europe, and he was not even turned 16 yet when he left.
Well, that was going to be, and we were going to wrap it up with some talking a little bit about Europe. So, how old is he now?
He's 19.
And, you know, for our listeners, what year was he born?
2005.
Okay, so he's born 2005. He's 19 years old, and he went to Spain at 16.
He was 15. He hadn't even turned 16 yet when he left.
Okay, now what was that conversation like? How did that happen?
It was he had been presented with this opportunity with an academy, a very good one. Um and this was a tough discussion. He's lived in New York his entire life. We're his family. And we're talking like, hey, do you want to move over 3,500 miles away from all things that you know to pursue this?
Mm-hmm.
And, we sought the counsel of some of his coaches that he had throughout his journey. One was from Europe. And he basically, had said to him, look, if you're serious about this, and I think you have the wherewithal to try to make something out of this, the beauty about Europe is there's so many countries and so many divisions and so many clubs that there's a lot of opportunity. But it's a big decision. And, the conversation we had, I said, this is a big decision for someone your age, and we will support whatever that decision is. If you decide to go, we will support you. We're 100% behind you. If you decide to stay on this route, we're 100% behind you. But I knew, just knowing his personality, that it was important for him to come to that conclusion and figure that out. And he did, and he chose to go.
Wow. He's still okay. And did you guys ever talk about a plan B, in the sense of, okay, you go out there, let's see how it goes, and maybe you come back home, regroup, and go to college or something like that? Or
Yep. So, well, at first it was like, no, there is no plan B. There is only plan A squared, plan A, triple D, whatever. I'm like, okay, but you always have to have a plan B. But he's a very, he gets very motivated. He's very visual, and he's like, I can only focus on the ultimate goal. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Yes, we did talk about that. And at one point he said, I'll keep my options open and maybe come back, to do college or whatever. Um, but he had to finish high school first, which he was doing remotely. So he did finish high school.
so he finished high school, the equivalent of a U.S. high school, or high school there?
He finished U.S. high school. So when he left for this academy to play, they were affiliated with an NCAA, um, accredited school that does online schooling. So he left the school he had been in from kindergarten to freshman year. He left that to do the rest of his high school education online. So he
Okay.
finished it all online and remotely.
Yeah. See, the challenge is, and the way the modern game is shaping up, and then you can have a broader conversation about the impact that has on aspiring U.S. players. But I lived in London a long time. Around that 15, 16, they are all in.
Yep.
That has pros and cons. The great thing about the American culture is American culture is very flexible, in the sense that you can come back and you are a junior college and undergrad degree away from being right back where everybody else is. So
Right.
it's very accommodating, very flexible, has a lot of mobility. And that's why I actually feel more comfortable, even in an American context, of a kid pursuing their dream, whether it's sports, business, acting, because you can come back, rebound, and start your life again and do something within that
Sure.
that you're passionate about. But the reality is, and I can speak very comfortably about the UK, if you're an aspiring professional at 16, you're always on the pitch. And the
Yep.
time you're not on the pitch, you watching video, you're all in. And so I'm happy to hear that. And then he has a support system of his family to be there if his ultimate dream, at the level that he wants, doesn't materialize. Gloria, final thoughts on what would you tell a parent as it relates to reflecting on your journey? A parent, just 6-year-old parent of a 6-year-old, you see them, they sign their child up for rec and they say to you, we're signed up for rec, but he loves soccer. What are you going to tell that parent as we close? Some of the things to think about when they get started with this journey.
You know, listen to your child. We tend to hear but not listen. Listen to what they're saying. Their verbal and physical, emotional cues that they're going to give you. And if they show that they have this, intensity towards it and this passion for it, it's probably worth exploring and giving them those opportunities. Ask a lot of questions. Talk to your community. Talk to your coaches. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, because 99% of the time, someone else has the same questions you do. You know what I mean? So ask the questions. And I think no matter how intense you are, remind your child to still have fun, and don't lose the love of the game. That is probably why they started. Sometimes you get so lost in the intensity of it. You don't want to lose the love of the game, because then it becomes a chore versus something bigger. And that's one of the things that I think I love so much about him being in Spain too, is this love of the game is just, it permeates everything.
Gloria, thank you so much. My name is Neil Crawford. This has been a wonderful conversation with Gloria Stitt, the co-founder of the website, ussoccerparent.com. We have more in store for you guys. We have articles coming out. We have special interviews coming out. So we have that to look forward to. And it's just going to be a nice resource for parents to get the information they need to support their child on this journey. And if you are a content creator, an influencer, a coach, a parent, you have information that you think can help other parents, I'll put Gloria's contact information in the show notes. Reach out to them directly so that you can be a part of ussoccerparent.com. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm the founder of Anytime Soccer Training and also the host of the Inside Scoop. Let's get better together.